make some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Tuesday, February 10th, 2026, and tax refunds for tax subsidies. Rebel News, I've got a story later in the show. Rebel News is getting they're being refused tax credits. And somebody else was saying, hold on a second, don't regular newspapers get as income tax subsidies, so they get tax credits on those subsidies? Like the income is tax and then you get to drop, because of you spending that money, you get to drop your taxes on that. It's weird. And I think that it is a little bit double dipping. Double dipping is fundamentally what's happening here. Deletion of court records in the United Kingdom to prevent people from reporting what's going on or even really knowing what's going on. The court system that they're the court reporting system that they're deleting, is one of the things that Tommy Robinson used to expose the grooming gang scandal and the lack of judicial accountability or any kind of consequences for these rape gangs that are operating. So they said, you know what we've got to do? We've got to get rid of that reporting system ASAP. And so Keir Starmer's doing that. Keir Starmer's apparently survived the attempt on his prime ministership, and now they're going to wait until a general election to be called whenever. And everybody seems okay with that. It seems very, very strange to have a situation where he was definitely gone Friday, if not Friday, interim prime minister next week for sure. And then by Tuesday, Keir Starmer saying, no, I'm good. We're all good. And people were saying that they think that he's going to stick around until he can give away the Chagos Islands in order to undermine the United States fundamentally. And I think that they might not be far off. That might actually be accurate. Food and chocolate cereal. The food professor is reporting that the spike in chocolate prices is abating and chocolate prices have collapsed. So chocolate cereal futures are looking nice and secure. So thumbs up for that. DEI hiring practices are court mandated. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Alberta's moving to remove DEI hiring practices from the universities, and they're getting legal pushback saying this violates our court order. This violates my very, very valid and current court thing, and you can't do that. And so very interesting. And if you do that, you lose all federal funding. So very interesting, very, very interesting indeed. And it gives a window into why all of this is so ubiquitous. It's not just the government. It is courts being plied by these lawsuits, and the courts are enforcing this kind of stuff. We're starting to see liberals really panic over Alberta leaving, and Stefan Dion, who's that? I know. He once upon a time ran for prime minister without bothering to learn English. So, what are you going to do, right? And bridge to endless tax dollars. Donald Trump says you are not going to actually open this bridge. It is a bridge to nothing because you guys did not do anything collaboratively with the United States. You did this on your own. And I don't think so, says Donald Trump. And so there's a whole lot more with this Gordie Howe Bridge than meets the eye. And Mocha makes an appearance today. So I appreciate all of his reporting. And I hope I hope people use this show as a jumping off point. I hope that sometimes the clips stand for themselves, but I hope people look at other creators and look at the other stuff that people are creating. Mocha's wonderful. I talk up some people sometimes, but I provide my links so that you can check things out for yourself and check out their content too. Okay, so lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, trade with the bridge to endless tax dollars. So what's going on here is that Carney created a scam, or Carney created an investment opportunity for foreign investors. How about that? Let's use the language they'll use. And he did this on the PEI bridge as well. And he said the government's going to subsidize this, and the price for Canadians going through is going to go down. And then this French conglomerate owns the bridge now, and they make the money or whatever. And the Canadian government and the Canadian taxpayer, I think, will maintain the bridge. And the French conglomerate gets money in some kind of kickback deal. I don't have all the details on the kickback deal and exactly how it all works, but it's strange to have infrastructure like bridges owned by foreign conglomerates. And that's kind of what Brookfield does. They find something that they can make money on, they buy it, it's an asset, and it's an asset in the portfolio that is managed by Brookfield, and you can buy into that, right? And so it is well, I don't know if you and me can buy into that other than into the stock market, but Brookfield is a management system. Like they have people who they manage their money and they buy assets. And if you're a part of that management fund, then you benefit from those assets, right? Does that make sense? And so what this bridge is like that PEI bridge on steroids. The money that the bridge would make would never pay back the bridge. It will always need Canadian subsidy, tax dollar subsidy. And this other group owns it. And Trump's saying, I don't think so. Nope. I don't think so. So Mocha says data shows cross-border traffic has been declining for the last 2 decades. The tolls on the Ambassador Bridge a few kilometers away are already unbeatably low, and its owners offered to build a second bridge for free, but Canada essentially refused. Now this bridge has cost Canadian taxpayers more than $7 billion, and that's almost twice the expected budget. And studies show it will need subsidies of at least $60 billion, as toll revenue could never be enough to even pay off the bridge. It was an absolutely unnecessary project built by foreign construction giants accused of operating like cartels, and the U.S. government does have the legal framework to extradite Canadian politicians who allowed procurement irregularities to occur that have the hallmarks of bid rigging. And so Donald Trump says, hey, remember that bridge, Ontario? I don't effing think so. But he says it like Trump, so here's what Trump said. As everyone knows, the country of Canada has treated the United States very unfairly for decades. Now, things are turning around for the USA, and fast. But imagine Canada is building a massive bridge between Ontario and Michigan. They own both the Canada and the United States side, and of course, built it with virtually no U.S. content. President Barack Hussein Obama stupidly gave them a waiver so they could get around the Buy American Act and not use any American products, including our steel. Now, the Canadian government expects me, as President of the United States, to permit them to just take advantage of America. What does the United States of America get? Absolutely nothing. Ontario won't even put U.S. spirits, beverages, and other alcoholic products on their shelves, and they are absolutely prohibited from doing so. And now, on top of everything else, are they absolutely prohibited, or they absolutely, I don't know. Anyway, on top of everything else, Prime Minister Carney wants to make a deal with China. This is a weird aside from Trump, and I don't know if there's hidden meaning in this threat or what he's trying to say here. But I think if China took over, I don't think they'd get rid of ice hockey. I don't understand this. Trump continues. Carney wants to make a deal with China, which will eat Canada alive. We'll just get the leftovers. I don't think so. The first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada. Permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. Oh, what? Okay. The tariffs Canada charges us for our dairy products have for many years been unacceptable, putting our farmers at great financial risk. I will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given them. And also, importantly, Canada treats the United States with fairness and respect that we deserve. We will start negotiations immediately. With all that we have given them, we should own perhaps at least 1/2 of this asset. The revenues generated because of the United States market will be astronomical. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So we want half the bridge. And also, do you want the Stanley Cup to continue? Because ice hockey is going to be ended by China. Okay? I don't know either. I have no idea. I'm sure we'll find out 10 to 15 years from now. David Mulrooney says, Trump threatens to block opening of new bridge to Canada. A spokesperson or a spokeswoman. Okay, so if it's a spokesman, it has to be a spokesperson. But if it's a spokeswoman, a spokeswoman. Got it. Rules for speaking these days. A spokeswoman for Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan downplayed Whitmer is still the governor. Didn't she orchestrate a kidnapping plot against herself? Downplayed the president's threat, saying that the bridge was going to open. The governor looks forward to attending the ribbon cutting. So, okay, we're going to go to war with Trump with Governor Whitmer over a bridge. So, super good, super fun. USMCA can't be renewed fast enough. I'm sure it's going to go just swimmingly. Everything's going to be fine. Jeepers creepers. M. Brandt says, I'm starting to think there's more to this bridge story than our media and intelligentsia is picking up on. Mocha from 2024, a year ago, 2 years ago. Holy cow, it's 2026. 2 years ago, Mocha says, hey, this bridge is going to cost us money forever. Mocha says, exposed corruption in the Canada-US P3 Gordie Howe Bridge project puts taxpayers in debt forever. Industry whistleblower Bob Ray, R-A-I, Bob Ray, not the former Premier of Ontario and current ambassador to somewhere, the UN maybe, reveals concerning patterns of fraudulent activity perpetrated by Canadian politicians that put taxpayers in multi-generational debt to foreign construction giants with a history of corruption. Support his stuff to listen, and it's an hour-long video, so you should go listen to that on Mocha's page. See, I promote other people. I'm seeing lots of people saying, you're stealing my content, and I just kind of mix all the content up and talk about the content. So I hope you give other creators credit where it's due. Table Salt says, by blocking the Gordie Howe International Bridge, Trump just declared war on Ford and Carney. Who do you think will win? Trump. He's got all the leverage. He's got the market that people want access to. Why would you build a bridge to a place nobody wants to go to? Right? The Americans wait for other people to build bridges there, and then they say, see that bridge? Yep, that's half of ours now. Half of that's ours now. Yes, sir. So there you go. Mocha again says, Canadian politicians are tweeting nonsense about the Gordie Howe International Bridge right now, which does not even merit disputing because what they have to say does not really matter. Unfortunately, the same goes for the prevailing public opinion. Many Canadians currently believe the cost of the bridge is merely $7 billion and that it will finance itself through toll revenue, as promised by the government, when in reality it will likely require tens of billions of dollars in subsidies, as Professor Eric Miller's 2018 study shows. The entire P3 procurement process has the hallmarks of bid rigging and collusion, as outlined in Bob Ray's research, and if the Trump administration were to address those issues, those politicians involved in the procurement process could face extradition to the United States, a real legal avenue that is very difficult to challenge, according to Dr. Gary Botting, who holds a PhD in English and law, rendering their tweets about the bridge's project irrelevant. Let's see if President Trump actually addresses the real issues with the bridge and maybe extradites Amarjeet Sohi from Edmonton, the infrastructure minister at the time, who was once jailed as a suspected terrorist in India and already had a history of credible corruption allegations levied against him in other projects before and after the bridge procurement. Oh, wouldn't that be fun? Oh my gosh, I would love to see that. That would be super fun. So Doug Ford and Mark Carney build this, well, not Doug Ford, but they facilitate kind of this whole thing, and the Carney Liberals, they facilitate this whole bridge thing, and then it pulls Alberta's former Edmonton mayor, because I don't think he's the current Edmonton mayor, former, right? And pulls him in, and like he's a former Indian terrorist. Juicy. I mean, you could have a movie about this, right? It'd be Trump's War or something like that. It'd be all about the bridge, right? I can see it, and it'll be like Charlie Wilson's War, only not with Tom Hanks, right? So pretty wild stuff. I think there are a whole bunch of examples like this where Canadians are getting fleeced, and we think that it's one thing, a $7 million bridge that'll pay for itself by the toll revenue, but in reality, it's another thing where you get into generational debt, and the politicians facilitating it get kickbacks from those taxpayer dollars that run through the corrupt construction companies that Canada's indebted to. Wild? I mean, crazier things have happened, right? Here is Mark Nixon, and he's reporting Jamil Giovanni met with Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. Giovanni currently has a better relationship with Donald Trump than anyone on the Liberal team, including Mark Carney. And I think that that's pretty funny. And then this headline must have gotten to the Liberals, because the Liberals started calling Giovanni a collaborator, you know, like that Unity Mitford collaborated with Hitler. Huh? So again, in order to understand kind of where we are and the comparison to that guy that I just said, the mustache guy and the painter, you have to understand that his whole thing was getting rid of the people who were tanking the economy and making the Weimar Republic a real thing. The reason he was popular is because he said, I'm going to get rid of all of their bad policies and kickstart the German economy again. And we're going to make things, and we're going to make money, and we're going to be able to run our households, and we don't have to suffer under these ridiculous fools. That's the comparison. And again, if you go back and read the books of the people who were there, right? You read Winston Churchill's, it's a 2-volume tome of World War II. You should read it. You should read Patton, and you should read the other guy too, because it will inform you about why they keep smearing people like this, because their power is threatened when the public are read into what's going on. Here's this ridiculousness.
A U.S. hostile government, deliberate destruction of global allegiances and the stability that our country has relied on. We have a Conservative Party of Canada's own Unity Mitford, who is attempting to freelance negotiations with the American president right now. There's separatist movements.
What a point of...
So, right. They called him on that. So that's good. Point of order. You can't say that. You can't say that. That's tripping. Chad says, this is insanity. We need to get the Liberals out of power. This is 2.5 minutes. Mark Miller doing his best. I just don't understand what you're talking about. I don't understand English effectively enough to understand the argument you're making. So I'm just going to sit here and pretend I don't understand. So this is maddening to watch because he definitely understands. Sandra Kobina, who's an MP, for Newmarket Aurora, says the minister wants the power of a king, not because it's needed, but because it would be helpful. I think this whole exchange is worth watching, so we're going to watch it all. Here we go.
But why should one minister, individual minister, be allowed to bypass 150 years of Canadian law and exempt a person or company of their choosing?
Yeah, look, that may be your view, but I don't think that is what's happening.
Well, that's how it's written.
It doesn't say people are being exempted from 150 years of law.
It says from any federal law except the criminal code.
Right. There's no mention of years or...
It's any federal law except
Sure.
for the criminal. So it's any federal law that has been passed over the last 150 years.
Right. I'm not going to parse this out with you.
So just to be clear, you don't need it to do your job, but you want to keep it nonetheless.
I think it's helpful to have.
Do you see the potential of abuse, though, in that companies or people will have to lobby you personally and not care about the law itself?
No one's asked me to overturn any laws.
You would have the ability to.
No one's asked him to turn over any laws because he doesn't yet have the ability. The law has not been passed. I don't think, as far as I understand it. They're debating it now, and she's saying it nullifies all of the laws for our entire country for the whole length of for the whole age of the country. Everything that's been written down in our law books, null and void if you decide that this is a bad idea. And he says, well, it's not written like that. It doesn't say 150 years, but it implies that. And he says, I'm not even going to argue with you about this, but he's wrong. It's not an argument thing. She's correct in her assessment. He's incorrect. And he doesn't seem to understand that. And that's weird. Back to this.
In some context, perhaps. But again, this is something that would have to be used very judiciously.
How could you possibly think that this would not undermine the trust in our democracy then?
I think Canadians expect us to act reasonably. I think Canadians expect us to be judicious in our decision making. Passing a law like C-15, which all members will have the opportunity to vote on, is something that is inherently accountable in and of itself.
Well, it has this particular clause that is very problematic. It is all over the news. I have a letter with 43 organizations asking for you to strike it because of the potential of abuse, but you still want to keep it.
I think I've answered that question about 3 times now.
I just don't find it reasonable for you to have the powers of a king, essentially.
Certainly don't have the powers of a king.
If you are allowed to exempt any entity from any federal law, it is like the powers of a king.
Is that a statement or a question?
Well, it's a fact.
Thank you, Ms. Kobina. That concludes the time for this.
Yeah, she's right. And she ends it perfectly. Is that a statement or a question? It's a fact. So, holy cow. Other people are upset too. I won't show you the whole 6 minutes on this one. Michael says, buried deep in the government's 600-page Budget Implementation Act is a provision that would allow ministers to exempt individuals or corporations from federal laws for up to 6 years without parliamentary approval under vague justifications like public interest or innovation. Canadians expect transparency and accountability, not sweeping powers that concentrate decisions behind closed doors and weaken Parliament's role. Canadians deserve answers and full public scrutiny. Good luck. Good luck. I think the whole thing is corrupt to the point where it is not salvageable, unfortunately. I hope I'm wrong about that, but I don't think I am. And every day that goes on with no accountability for COVID is a day that hardens for me, solidifies, and becomes reality. And it's sad. It's a sad situation because you think that you have faith in the institutions. And now I think to myself, if the institutions could possibly get a justification to throw people like me in jail, they would gleefully do so. And even if the justification was very thin, even if the justification didn't make sense, I think they would gleefully do so. So Holly Doan says Commons industry, and that's a bad place to be as well. Like that's a bad situation for the country to be in, because then people can't speak freely. Then you can't, it's de facto communism. You can't solve problems because you're afraid to bring up the problems, right? What's the problem? The call to prayers being blasted at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's a problem. Oh, that's quite Islamophobic of you, sir, right? Like China's got influence in our federal elections. Oh, that's quite anti-China of you, sir, right? Like these things are being made up as new criticisms arise. Holly Doan says, moving on, Commons Industry Committee votes to scrutinize the decision to expand market for Chinese EVs and review the 5K rebates for U.S.-made EVs. Unanimous vote came after which minister? Innovation, Science and Development, Economic Development Canada Minister Mel Joly said she could not understand why anyone would oppose. The whole thing is bad. Having a 5K rebate for U.S.-built electric vehicles is incentivizing and paying off Stellantis, who just like bailed on Canada, right? So it's not a good plan. It's a bad plan. It doesn't make any sense. And the idea of letting Chinese EVs in here, flagrantly discarding what Trump's threatened, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. And we'll see if Canada suffers consequences for it. I've got to say goodbye to the stream soon. Canada Proud says the Carney Liberal government responded to an Access to Information Act request for the make and model and amount of compensation for the 25 guns confiscated in Cape Breton with an almost entirely redacted document. So these people who want to be able to allow anybody they want with very little oversight to not adhere to the law for 6 years will not give any information on their doomed gun confiscation program. Like no information at all, right? So how much per gun, right? Like it's pretty wild. 26,535 is the monetary total in the bottom right there. So is that how much compensation was given for these 25 guns? $1,000 each and change? Who knows? I'd have no idea genuinely, but it seems strange to send mostly redacted with a monetary total at the bottom. Sandra Kobina again says, during the election, the Liberals promised Canadians they would balance the operating budget within 3 years. Instead, after the decision, they quietly redefined what counts as capital investment, shifting ordinary operating expenses into the capital column to manufacture the appearance of fiscal discipline. The parliamentary budget officer saw through it. The PBO identified $94 billion in misclassified operating spending and warned that this creative accounting undermines transparency, and calling for an independent watchdog to oversee these classifications. And this concern isn't partisan. Even the Prime Minister's friends at the International Monetary Fund have now confirmed that Canada's definition of capital investment is too broad. The IMF has explicitly warned that hiding operation cost as capital spending risks overstating productivity gains, and recommended independent oversight to restore credibility. In short, this isn't fiscal responsibility. It's relabeling expenses to avoid telling Canadians the truth. Yeah, I think that that's true, and I think that that's true across the board. We're being lied to, and they're hoping that we don't figure it out before they can get their censorship stuff online. But even if we figure it out, I am not convinced that we would effectively counter what's happening to us. There are a lot of people who depend on the money that's being given by the government. There are purchased votes in enclaves, promises for people who don't work that money will be given to them, and so on and so forth. And these people have a vested interest. And the size of the private sector or the public sector, the size of the schools and the government and all of that other stuff, the public sector, is massive. And having that many people work, they understand if we had our finances right, I'd never have a job where I sit around and do nothing all day, right? Like, maybe they don't understand that, but they should. And so they vote Liberal, right? And so they vote Liberal to keep their jobs. And so there's this built-in package where if they keep the money flowing, regardless of how bad it is for the country, then they continue to stay in power because of the election fraud and the incentives, the structures that they have. And so that's not bad. Or that's not good. We are in a situation where the incentives that should be pulling these people out of office are being turned on their head, and these people are at the controls, at the helm of money flowing to voting blocks that keep them in power. How do you fight that? So, and it's very, very difficult because, again, it's not just the voting blocks they're paying off, it's the media too. And it's fully underpinned and supported by the people who Trump appears to be fighting. And so, again, it's a very, very, very tall order to fight back against all of this. It's very, very difficult, I think. And with that, I've got to say goodbye to the stream. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If not, that's okay. I'll be around tomorrow. And for everybody else, we'll carry on as soon as I kill the stream here. Done and done. Secretary Rubio says the sentencing of Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong is an unjust and tragic conclusion to this case. We urge the authorities to grant Mr. Lai humanitarian parole. And these are the people that we're partnering with, right? Isn't that foolish of us? Tokyo Rosie says the Liberals are concerned with the unlawful imprisonment of freedom protesters in China. Of course, Canada is imprisoning freedom protesters in Canada.